Hey, this is Chris Creekmore, Creekmore Realty Group at the coast of North Carolina, and I am joined by my several members that are on the team. This webinar, just while I've got just a minute before I actually hit the start button, this webinar is going to be a part of this is our buyer series, and the we're going to have every second week of the month. And if you go onto, you'll see the websites. If you go onto retire2nc.com or creekmorerealtygroup.com, you will see a list, hit the events page, and you'll see the events of the webinars that we have. But we will, each month, we will have a webinar dedicated just for people who want to learn tips and tricks and things about selling their property. And then this one, which is dedicated for the topic of buyer. So my team and I, we were talking, and we take quite a bit of time explaining the North Carolina contracts to our clients when we're going through the progression of identifying property and getting it all the way to closing. And we thought that this webinar might be helpful such that you're not as, or the viewers of this webinar may not be as confused or maybe as stressed when your agent, hopefully your agent is us, but we understand people who are on this webinar may not have made a decision who they want to help them represent them. But the goal is to inform, educate, and reduce stress for what ultimately should be an absolutely happy time for contracts, what they do and why they matter, just an overview. I can always get granular. We can get granular on anything, any question that you may have on these contracts. All you got to do is reach out to myself or anybody on my team, and we can go over these contracts. But we wanted to give you a nice big overview such that a piece of paper is put in front of you. You don't say, well, what is that? Okay, so let's think about the purchase of property or the sale of a property. But this whole webinar is mainly geared towards buyers. So if you think of the purchase of the property as the tip of the iceberg, getting that under contract, then all these other things under the water, which your agent is taking care of, that's what this webinar is going to talk about. And it's also going to talk about the paperwork, the contracts, the forms, the amendments, the addendums that come along with that. So we have forms for that. North Carolina, although North Carolina is an attorney state, a lot of people live in an attorney state and they think that just because you're in an attorney state, the attorney drafts the contract. That's not the case in North Carolina. We use a standardized set of forms that are drafted by attorneys that work for the North Carolina Realtors Association. So Joanne, right over here, she may not be happy with me for putting this photo on here, but this couple that I helped earlier last year. But anyhow, responsibility, the buyer, what are you responsible for? Respond promptly to your lender. Attend inspections? Nah, you don't have to. It's good if you do. Your agent can, but you don't actually have to attend the inspections. Make decisions about repairs, review and approve documents, arrange homeowners insurance, and prepare funds for closing. Your agent's role, this is just a short list. Your agent's got a really long list, but this is just a short list. Coordinate inspections, track deadlines, negotiate repairs, communicate with all properties, conduct your walkthroughs on your behalf, and attend closings with you. Your attorney. So the attorney is going to make sure that there's no liens or encumbrances upon your property other than those that may be of record, public record, like covenants, like easements and setbacks. We'll prepare your closing documents, review title work, and coordinate with a lender, the closing disclosures, and conduct the closings, and certainly record the deed. So there's three basic kinds of agency. You have your seller's agent, which is only representing the seller. So if you go into an open house, and if you go into an open house and then that listing agent represents the seller, and there's something that should not be disclosed to that seller that may hinder your negotiation ability. I just was awarded a settlement of $2 million. I'm flush with cash. Don't tell that seller agent. So mum's the word. Unless you want that agent to represent you, then you would be in a dual agency. So dual agent, buyer's agent. So the buyer's agent represents the buyer exclusively. So, and you definitely want a buyer's advocate for you. I don't care if it's new construction or if it's a resale home or a parcel of land. You want somebody in your corner that knows the market, knows the communities, knows the properties. But that buyer's agent, once you sign an agency agreement, that person is the sole fiduciary responsibility is to you, the buyer. If you choose to purchase, which I've done many dual agencies, if you choose to purchase property that is listed by the seller's agent and who's also representing you, then anything that the seller's agent may know about credit history, whatever, once you agree to purchase that or have that person as your agent, anything that will harm your negotiations is not to be shared. So this information, again, is it's okay to have a dual agent, but know that that dual agent also is going to be more of a referee during the transaction. So let's say you say, well, Chris, what do you think the seller will take for the property? I don't know what the seller will take for the property, but I can give you all the comps and I can tell you what the comps say, but I don't know what the seller will say. The seller says to me, because we're now in dual agency, the seller says to me, what do you think they can afford? I don't know what they can afford. I can tell you that they're nice people and this is how much they're going to offer for your property, but I can't disclose those things. I'm a referee disclosing information that would be on paper. Okay. Again, your Q&A box is open. If any of these things are like, what? Feel free to reach out. Okay. So make sure you have a signed agreement with your agent. Otherwise, you don't have an agency agreement. Okay. So we're going to start with the first form. A lot of people that we may come into our office and we're having our consultation with our buyer and we say, are you working with another agent? I don't think so. I signed something, but I don't know what I signed. More than likely, what you signed was a just basic disclosure that says, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you understand that there's a buyer's agent contract, which is an exclusive buyer's agreement. So it establishes an agent exclusive representation. I can't work for anybody else. If you told me that you're allergic to cat hair, whatever, I can't share that. Now it's 3, but let's hit the highlights of it. So when an agent is saying, what services are they providing? Basically, we're putting in there, are we helping you find condos versus single family homes? Are we helping you in a particular location? Chris, I only want you to represent me in St. James Plantation. Chris, I only want you to represent me in Brunswick County. Chris, I only want you to represent me in Brunswick County and New Hanover County. That's what it is establishing. So the buyer's disclosure is, here's your opportunity to say, I, as a buyer, I am working with another agent, or I am working with a relocation company. The reason we want to know that is because a relocation company is going to demand an additional fee. We just need to know that. That has to be disclosed. We're saying all this again, such that something has not blindsided you when you're when an agent presents these documents to you. So a fee is not earned until the property is closed, or God forbid, the buyer breaches contract and you're 2 days before closing. Compensation is not fixed. It is negotiable. So it's important that you know that. Your agent will discuss that with you, with your client. So John, you got a comment you want to add to that?
Yes, sir, I do. I started in real estate in 1995 with a company called Help You Sell Real Estate. And with Help You Sell Real Estate, it was all dual agency. So I think I probably closed, I don't know, around 80 transactions while I was with them under dual agency. And here's what I learned. When you represent a seller, that's when you would hope to have a dual agency situation, because oftentimes a dual agency, when you represent a seller, can save the seller some money. And that can be a good benefit to our sellers and our clients.
Yep.
However, when we're a buyer in a transaction, we never want to be a dual agent. The reason why is because as a buyer, your agent can negotiate and lobby on your behalf for all of the things that you want and champion and back and protect all of the terms, the price, compensation, or not compensation, due diligence, all that stuff. Your agent protects you with that stuff. Whereas when you're a buyer, if you go to a listing and participate with that listing agent, become a dual agent that way, you don't have the representation for you. You're not going to have an advocate for you because, like Chris said, it's going to be a mediated situation and no one's going to be advocating for you.
So again, compensation is negotiable. Sellers right now are typically offering 2.5 to 3% for a home purchase. So we try to ascertain that information before we get into a house so that we know what the sellers are offering. Okay, but so you can eyeball and you can see where this is on the contract. So This is what's called a cooperative compensation agreement. This is what we typically get from the seller. I'm representing the buyer. This is what we typically get from the seller in advance that says the seller is offering 3%. So you know it. You as the buyer, you know it, you understand it. And then it will be shown on the settlement statement that the seller it's coming out of their net proceeds. So here's what we see. I've got Debbie that I'm meeting. I'm going to take Debbie and her husband. They're going to see 5 houses. I'm scheduling those 5 houses. So before I can schedule those 5 houses, clicking basically the button, request these 5 houses, up pops this little window that says a participant working with a buyer's agent or a buyer must enter into a written agreement with a buyer prior to buyer touring the property. You can enter into an agreement for 1 day. You can enter in an agreement for 2 years. But an agency agreement must be signed prior to that agent taking you into the property. Just know that this is the things that we have to do in today's time.